Hey everyone, so now I have the screen here and I have a bunch of GIFs that you'll see when I open up this week's this week's this weekly content. So you'll see there's examples of some typographic GIFs here. And I have a little like reading here, Designing in Motion by Ben Radatz, talking about um, how you start thinking about animating and creating motion. So some of you will be interested in some of your final posters for this to be animated. Some of you may choose to do all of them animated. Some of you may choose to do, again, one by hand, three digitized, one that is total motion. It is up to you how these 5 posters are generated once you start to make decisions in the final posters. Just for clarification, for this week, you have 2 on the grid posters that you have generated that you have not touched, and now you have 5 off the grid. From those 5 off the grid, through comment, critique, and your own self-observations of your work, you're going to select 2 that you feel have the most potential. So now you're going to have 2 on the grid and 2 off the grid, which now you will be able to start digitizing, and you can start mixing and remixing using some of the tactics that I talked in the previous video. The 5th one is up to you what you do with it. You can generate however you want. You can take one off the grid that you like a lot that you made last week and you want to digitize that as is, that's fine. You can generate one that is a mix between off the grid and on the grid. You could make a new one from the 2 off the grid or the 2 on the grid. However you want to mix these, it is up to you. But again, all these posters are a family. So as I said to you when we were in the previous video, one of the things that you want to do is, for example, this is just the finished poster that I was working on in the previous video, right? This is just dummy, for example, right? And that's the final poster. What I want you to start thinking is, what is the idea behind the animation? Similarly, when you start thinking, what is the idea, the concept behind the printed piece, right? And how do I get that across? So that whatever decisions you make in terms of the animation in the GIF, it's exactly, it speaks to that. Now, one thing about GIFs or GIFs, I call them GIFs because I think of them as little GIFs, is we're used to seeing them, right? So you've seen, this is Jiffy. You see, one of the things about GIFs, and you're trying to get at the essence, that little moment that then becomes a loop and starts repeating, right? So you start to see one particular action, right? One particular idea that keeps repeating over and over. That is the impact of it. So you're not trying to generate a piece that has 54 different things. This is not a massive animation. This is a small animation. The great thing about GIFs is that once they're made, you can email them, you can text message them. The motion lives on forever. It's an old technology. That's why it works so well everywhere, but it can be very impactful. Here's a search I did on typography. So you start to see the gesture that happens is simple. So when you're looking at your poster here, right, you want to start thinking, what is it that I'm interested in animating? So you have to look at your entire composition made, and then you start making decisions about what you're going to animate. In that case, I also started exporting each piece of the animation out because I want to be able to control them individually. Okay, this is a very rudimentary thing, very simple technology. So you open up Photoshop, and I made an 11 by 17 file here, right? Because these posters are 11 by 17, which when you think about a screen size, that's a print size. So you want to start thinking about what are actual sizes in terms of digital. So one of the things you want to do is you want to bring in each layer into the file. So so you just bring each layer, say okay, it makes it a smart object. That's fine. You can say okay. My computer is acting up a little bit, so I apologize for that. I need to put more memory in it. That's what it is. These are actually really fun to do. So there's smart objects. You'll see that they have a border box. You click return, right? So notice that there's a background, then which is usually white. Then there's the finished poster, and then I'm going to start bringing in layer 3, right? Click OK, right? And notice that it went right on top of the finished poster. So I'm using the finished one just as the guide. Then I'm going to bring in layer 4, and because it's the same file, they're going to be on top of each other, of course. It's not going to be anything drastic in layer 5, right? So if I turn these off, I can now control each of these layers individually, right? Right? It's just a piece, right? I'm using the finished piece as a way to be able to tell what's happening back here, right? If I need a guide. So for example, I may want to say that I want to bring a guide here, and you can do that in Photoshop as well, right? So you bring a guide so that you sort of know where things are going to be, just to help you in placements. That's really important. Now, let's say that I want to make sure that that good taste and perfect typography are super personal. I'm not going to touch that. That's great. One thing you want to do is label your layers, right, so that you know good taste. It usually takes the name of the file, but I just label them, layer 1, so you can change it to G so you know what's here, right? And then you can say this is the glyph, right, the random glyph that you made. So if I turn all these on, they're all on, right? There's the finished poster, right? So it's right on top of each other. I'm not using opacity, any of that. You can certainly use the opacity if you wanted to on the overall, just so that you can sort of glare, but everything's on top of each other, so you're not going to see anything, right? So I'm just, again, using it just as a guide, and you can go back and forth and sort of see where things are if I turn that on, right? So now that I have that on, I'm just going to show you how to make the animation. So you're going to see down here there's a timeline. If you don't see it, it's in the window. You can open the timeline and you create a frame animation, right? So what you're really literally is animating. You're very literally animating. This timeline, you can look at it in two ways. You can, by clicking the little button all the way to the left, you can look at it as a timeline sequence if you've done video, or you can do it as frames. I tend to work with frames because this is super simple to do, and it simplifies it a lot more for me. Up to you how you want to work with it. You get a frame and it shows all the layers that are clicked on, okay? So, and it has a 5-second underneath it. Underneath you start to see that you select looping options. Once it's the generic setup, you're gonna do it forever because you want the loop to continue, right? It just keeps playing over and over and over and over. Then you start to see some playing controls that you will see like play, rewind, etc. And then there's a trash can. There's a new layer button, and then there's this little button that bounces. You'll see what that does. That's tweens animation, which means it adds frames in between one frame and the other to create the animation. The more tweening you do, the larger your file is, the less it's going to work efficiently. GIFs are really small files, so if you make a ginormous 50 megabyte GIF, that's not going to go anywhere, just so you know. So you want to make them small. So tweening it's not as exciting as you think. Also keep in mind, this is not After Effects. This is not Flash. This animation is not going to be super smooth. You can make it super smooth depending on how many layers you start working. So what I'm going to do is the first layer, let's say that has everything. I can copy that, and it literally makes a copy of it. Now what I can start doing is I can start saying that good taste line is going to stay throughout the entire thing, but that G is not going to appear, right? So the first thing you'll see is that G, and I'm just leaving the first frame there just for the sake of leaving it there. I make another copy, and the third frame of this, the G appears, right? But perhaps what starts to happen, the G doesn't appear in place yet. It just starts creeping in, right? And then I make another frame of that. I make a copy of that. And then the G comes into view here. And then I make a new frame of that. And then I lock the G into place where it should be. There, right? So now I go from here to here, 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 here. You started to see moving. Now let's say that I go here and I want to insert the glyph, so I bring the glyph in there. So the key thing is that you're literally working with the layers. So you have to know what the layers are and how you label them for you to start thinking of the animation. The first time you do this, usually you get it wrong and you have to do it a few times, but because this is such an efficient way of doing animation, you can work with it really well. So for example, you say that you want the glyph to, instead of appearing here, you want to rotate it. So you can actually take it and you can actually rotate it as you would take the layer. Let's see. You can rotate it. You can flip it. Where is it? I'm being ridiculous right now, you guys. I'm really sorry. Now I'm like I don't know Photoshop. Oh my god. Let's see. Oh, wow. I totally went blank. I blanked out. Transform. So you can of course like rotate it if you wanted to. You notice that you're rotating the whole thing, right? So you can take that and you can rotate. Let's say you want to rotate it there, right? You can even place, because you're working, notice that I'm just working on that layer. You can take it here, right? And you can say, okay, so the first version that I see is that there, right? Or you can take that, and in that frame, you got to be on the right frame. Then you take it up and say, okay, I want this guy to come down here, right? There, two. Here, I bring the glyph back in, and I want it to appear like here. So in essence, what you're saying is things starting to move, right? And if I go here, I make a copy of that. Then he goes here. I can make a copy of that. And then I take it to here. I can make a copy of that. And then I can, again, transform it. I can, like, let's say I want to flip it vertical. Oops, no. However you want to do, right? So in essence, what you're seeing is this little here. So you can, right? You can say it's going to go away there. So you can start to see. You can take this and you can press play and it'll preview it. But notice that it's now at 5 seconds. That's too long, right? In animation, you can stop it and say, if I select all of them, I can change the timing in all of them. You can also change the timing individually, right? So let's say I'm going to go there and then here it is. You can preview it here. So you start to see what the animation starts to look like, right? Now, one thing for these posters, let's say you have body copy, I would say don't try to animate the body copy unless there's elements within the body copy that you want to start animating, right? Like you want to flash on and off, turn it on and off as if it's like highlighting, right? What you can also do is you can stop that. Like let's say you want to start here, so you can delete that first one, the first frame, because I want to start here. So what you can do is you can take that. Notice the good taste here. So it starts there, there. I'm going to turn it off. Then it comes back on. Then I'm going to turn it off. So it's going to flash. We're creating the idea of flashing, right? And there's that, and it goes back. So now I can preview it. Keep in mind that you're going frame by frame. So you're controlling each frame and what happens to each layer within each of the frames, right? And this is going to continue in a loop. So let's say that you're happy with that. Fine, no problem. You can file, you can export it, save for web legacy. This is how you have to save them. You save them as GIFs. You have to select GIF, not a JPEG, a GIF. You can change the size of it. Notice this is 792 by 124 pixels, so it's changed to 2 pixels. It's looping forever. You save, right? It's going to save it, and I'm going to do a desktop, and I'm going to do test GIF for type, save it, and this little GIF file here, right? If you hit the spacebar, it plays it for you. So that's what it actually looks like. You can email it, you can text it to yourself, you can copy it as a picture. And what happens with GIFs is that if there is no way for it to be shown, it will show the first frame. So what you want to do is the first frame always has to be the last frame, or what you want the whole thing to read as, right? Because that's the safety it is. So that's how you make a GIF. And a lot of this again is you planning out once your composition is done, what parts of it need to be animated, what can be animated. And again, these posters that you're making, you can run the gamut from handmade to GIFs. And if you want to do one handmade at 4 GIFs, that's fine. If you want to make all handmade, that's fine. If you want to make all digital, that's fine. By digital, I mean you want to just digital print them, animate. If you want to make 5 GIFs, that's fine. But keep in mind that this making GIFs, the first few that you make mistakes. And it's sometimes easier to just stop and restart again than it is trying to fix the GIF, right? Because you don't have tons of control on this. This is actually very simple controls. So don't think that you can do, like Flash or After Effects magic on here. Great. The other thing is I want to show you is like if I look at this GIF and I look at the info, look, this is 49 KB file, and there it is, right? The info of the file. This is not even a megabyte. This is tiny file, so you can email this, you can do all sorts of stuff with it. So it's a really great way to start thinking about presenting concepts of animation. For example, if you're presenting to a client and you're like, this is what we're thinking, this is a very quick way of doing something, which is something I've used several times to present to clients and to present to people that I'm working with in terms of designing. A quick way of saying this is the idea of the piece. This is the idea of the animation. This is what I'm hoping to get. Great. Okay, so let's see what you all make with some of this stuff. It's really time to have fun with these cut and paste. And although some of you have been having fun with the cut and paste, but it's now time to go from the hand to the digital and see what happens. All right, let's see what you guys do.